When CEO Rowan Ward uncovers betrayal within his family's empire, he must rely on Tessa, a woman with her own reasons to walk away. But as secrets surface, will saving the company cost them everything? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The bright overhead lights of Dade Architectural Design burned late into the night. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago, but Tessa Ward remained at her desk, eyes fixed on her computer screen. As operations manager, she took pride in being the first to arrive and the last to leave. Just one more hour, she muttered to herself, rubbing her tired eyes. At 30, Tessa had worked hard for everything she had. Starting as a receptionist 5 years ago, she'd climbed the ranks through sheer determination. Her colleagues respected her, even if they found her intimidating. She didn't care. In this world, respect mattered more than popularity. That's when she saw him, a man curled up on the floor, fast asleep, a folded coat serving as his pillow. A mop lay forgotten beside him. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Tessa glanced at it and frowned. It was from her brother Marcus again. They hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not since their big fight when he accused her of selling out to corporate America instead of staying connected to their community. He was younger than she expected, probably late 20s with dark hair and stubble on his jaw. He wore the standard grey uniform of the cleaning staff, though it seemed a bit large for his frame. There was something strange about the way he looked at her, not angry or defensive, just observant. Need to talk. Important, call me, the message read. This building houses one of the most prestigious architectural firms in the country. I'll respect it, he said, his voice even. Tessa set the phone face down. Whatever it was, it could wait. As she walked through the empty hallways toward the elevator, Tessa made a mental note to check on the new intern's progress tomorrow. They were talented, but needed structure. The cleaning service was contracted to maintain the building's prestigious appearance. This was completely unacceptable. Today was important, the quarterly board meeting where she would present her department's progress. The Westbrook project couldn't. Standards were standards. She watched as he walked toward the service entrance, then turned and headed out the main doors to catch a taxi home. His son Rowan, who had been living abroad for years, inherited everything but immediately disappeared from public view. The board had been running things in his absence. And apparently he's been in the building for weeks, working undercover or something, like that show Undercover Boss. By midnight, she finally finished reviewing the budget projections. Tessa took her seat, arranging her presentation materials precisely in front of her. The owner is back. Rowan Dade is attending the meeting today. The marble lobby gleamed under the security lights as she crossed toward the exit. Tessa looked up and felt the blood drain from her face. He was Rowan Dade, owner of the entire company. Tessa stopped cold. What? Tessa somehow made it through her presentation, though she couldn't later recall a single word she'd said. All she could think about was the humiliation waiting for her at the end. That's impossible. She had fired her boss, her actual boss, the man who could destroy her career with a single word. He hasn't been seen in public since his father's funeral. Excuse me, she said sharply. The man didn't stir. Excuse me, she repeated, louder this time. Tessa kept her face carefully neutral. He startled awake, blinking up at her with bleary eyes. As some of you may have heard, I've spent the past 3 weeks observing our company from various positions: maintenance, mailroom, security. I wanted to understand what my father built from the ground up. She didn't hesitate to address what she saw as unacceptable behavior, regardless of potential consequences. Tessa sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. That's the kind of integrity this company needs more of. He turned to look directly at her. Which is why I'm appointing Ms. Ward as our new head of internal operations, effective immediately. I'm sorry, what time is it? He asked, sitting up. Ward? He asked, gathering his papers. Time for you to find another job, Tessa replied coldly. This is completely unprofessional. Sleeping on the job in the main lobby? The man stood slowly, brushing off his uniform. He almost smiled. And you were right to do so. You're right, he said simply. It was unprofessional. His calm response only irritated Tessa more. I'll be speaking with your supervisor tomorrow. Please gather your things and leave immediately. My father built this company from nothing. When he died, I inherited a name on a building, but not his knowledge or his connection to the people who work here. I needed to understand what I'd been given before I could lead it. She expected an argument or an excuse. Instead, he picked up his mop and coat with quiet dignity. Ward. He handed her a folder. Here's your first assignment. I want to restructure our company culture. In 24 hours, she'd gone from firing the janitor to being promoted by the owner. It felt surreal. Make it less about hierarchy and more about collaboration. I'd like your assessment by the end of the week. Whatever game her brother was playing, she didn't have time for it now. She had work to do. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Dade. I won't disappoint you. If that's your call. Her office was moved to the executive floor with a view of Central Park that still took her breath away. Her salary had nearly doubled, yet despite these perks, she felt uneasy, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Something in his tone made Tessa pause, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. The next morning, Tessa arrived early as usual, dressed in a crisp navy suit that projected authority. He asked, setting the bags on her coffee table. Tessa reluctantly joined him at the small conference table in her office. I'd like to hear your thoughts over dinner. As she prepared her notes in the conference room, her assistant, Jamal, poked his head in. Have you heard the rumors? He asked excitedly. You know I don't listen to office gossip, Tessa replied without looking up. This isn't gossip. It's a business decision. I need someone who values excellence and isn't afraid to enforce it. That made Tessa look up. Everyone knew the story. 6 months ago, Thomas Dade, founder of the company, had died suddenly of a heart attack. Some of us had to fight for every opportunity. She'd revealed too much, let things get personal. Well, he's here now, Jamal insisted. It's not relevant to the company assessment. Tell me about that fight, he said quietly. That's ridiculous, Tessa scoffed, though a tiny knot of unease formed in her stomach. But I'd like to understand the perspective of the people who work here, all perspectives. The board members began filing into the room, looking unusually tense. The door opened one last time and conversation stopped. There, dressed in an expensive suit, was the janitor she had fired last night. And most days I have no idea if I've earned any of it. Except he wasn't a janitor. College scholarships and 3 jobs to cover what they didn't. She didn't trust his motives. Men like Rowan Dade didn't have heart-to-heart conversations with employees without reason. Instead, he gathered the food wrappers and stood to leave. To accept that maybe, just maybe, not everyone had an angle. I started here answering phones and taking coffee orders. She met his eyes. Nobody handed me anything. Before she could respond, her phone rang. I look forward to your full report tomorrow. Seeing her brother's name, she declined the call. I earned my place. Their eyes met across the room. His expression gave nothing away, but Tessa felt her heart pound against her ribs. Good morning, Rowan said to the room, his voice exactly as she remembered it from last night, calm, measured. Let's begin. The meeting proceeded in a fog. When the last agenda item was covered, Harold Reynolds, the head of the board, cleared his throat. Before we adjourn, Mr. Dade would like to address a matter of personnel. This was it. Tessa straightened her spine, determined to face her dismissal with dignity. Yes, Rowan said, standing. Murmurs spread around the table. Last night, Rowan continued, I had an interesting encounter with Ms. Ward. All eyes turned to her. Tessa refused to shrink. She found me sleeping on the job in the lobby and fired me on the spot. The room went deathly silent. Then Reynolds spoke, his voice placating. Mr. Dade, I want to assure you that Ms. Ward's actions don't reflect our... Actually, Rowan interrupted, they reflect exactly what I want to see in this company. Tessa's head snapped up in surprise. Ms. Ward didn't know who I was, but she held firm to her standards. The room erupted in confused congratulations. As the meeting adjourned, people filed out, casting curious glances her way. Soon, only she and Rowan remained in the conference room. Mr. Dade, she began, finding her voice at last. I don't understand. What don't you understand, Miss? I fired you. Yes, you did. But I fell asleep on the job. It was unprofessional, just as you said. Tessa studied his face, looking for signs of mockery or manipulation. She found none. Why were you pretending to be a janitor? She asked bluntly. Rowan leaned against the conference table. It made a certain kind of sense, but Tessa wasn't convinced. Rich people always had angles. So, this promotion is not charity or a joke, he finished for her. Tessa wanted to believe him, but experience had taught her caution. I know you won't, Ms. As he walked toward the door, he paused. And Ms. Ward? I prefer Rowan, not Mr. Dade. That was my father. After he left, Tessa sank back into her chair, mind reeling. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Seriously, Tess, I need your help. Money trouble. Call me. She sighed and turned the phone off. The next few days passed in a blur as Tessa settled into her new role. On Thursday evening, Tessa was working late again when a knock came at her door. Rowan stood there holding 2 paper bags. I noticed you haven't left your office in 12 hours, he said. Thought you might be hungry. The smell of food made Tessa realize she'd forgotten to eat lunch. Still, she hesitated. I appreciate the gesture, Mr. Dade, Rowan, but I have a lot to finish before tomorrow. The report on company culture? It wasn't really a request. This is from the food truck on 48th, she noted with surprise, as she opened the bag to find a falafel sandwich. Best in the city, Rowan agreed. I discovered it during my janitorial days. As they ate, Tessa found herself gradually relaxing. Rowan asked thoughtful questions about her report, seeming genuinely interested in her perspective. You've noted that our junior staff rarely speak in meetings, he observed. They're afraid to, Tessa explained. The senior partners have created an environment where mistakes aren't tolerated. It stifles innovation. Like you not tolerating a sleeping janitor? He asked with a hint of amusement. Tessa set down her sandwich. That was different. Was it? Yes. That was basic professionalism, not creative input. Rowan nodded slowly. Fair point, though I wonder if we sometimes confuse rigid standards with genuine excellence. Something in his tone irked her. With all due respect, some of us can't afford to be philosophical about standards. As soon as the words left her mouth, Tessa regretted them. But Rowan didn't seem offended. Tessa wrapped up her sandwich, retreating behind her professional mask. Maybe not, he agreed, not pushing further. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Finally, Tessa spoke. I grew up in Queens, single mother, 2 kids. Rowan held her gaze. I believe you. Then, after a pause, I was handed everything. The raw honesty in his voice surprised her. Someone important? Rowan asked. No, Tessa said firmly. No one important. She could tell he didn't believe her, but he didn't press. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Ms. Ward. After he left, Tessa sat in her quiet office, trying to make sense of the man who'd gone from sleeping on the lobby floor to buying her dinner in the span of a week. Whatever game he was playing, she needed to be careful. She had worked too hard to lose everything now, but as she turned back to her computer, a small rebellious part of her wondered what it might be like to trust him. She quickly pushed the thought aside. In her experience, everyone wanted something. The trick was figuring out what before they took it from you. Her phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Fine. Don't help your own brother. I'll remember this. Tessa closed her eyes, the familiar guilt and resentment washing over her. Some wounds never seemed to heal no matter how much time passed. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky. Another day done, another battle fought. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, including figuring out exactly what Rowan Dade really wanted from her. Because men like him always wanted something. And Tessa Ward wasn't about to be caught off guard when she finally discovered what it was. 1 week into her promotion, and she still felt like an imposter every time she walked through the door. The sleek furniture and expansive view seemed to belong to someone else's life. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Tessa's new corner office. Ward? Her assistant Jamal appeared in the doorway. The design team is waiting in conference room B. Thank you for giving me the chance to present, Ms. This was what she wanted, to create opportunities for people who deserved them. Thank you, she replied, gathering her notes. And Jamal, please call me Tessa. He smiled. Old habits. Also, Mr. Dade asked if you could stop by his office after your meeting. No designer watch, no fancy tie, just a simple button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Unlike his father, who'd favored ostentatious displays of wealth, Rowan had redesigned the office with simple, clean lines. The only personal touch was a small photo on his desk. A much younger Rowan with an older man Tessa assumed was his father. Since their dinner a week ago, she'd seen Rowan only in formal settings, board meetings and staff presentations. He'd been unfailingly professional, giving no hint of their more personal conversation. Tessa nodded, ignoring the flutter in her stomach. The changes aren't about punishing executives. They're about creating an environment where good ideas can come from anywhere. I've been reviewing your proposals for the company restructuring. The board has some concerns. The design team meeting ran smoothly. He shook his head. Harold Reynolds called it socialist nonsense. Rowan sat across from her. How are you settling into your new role? Which is why I've approved all your proposals, effective immediately. It still feels strange. Last month I was managing a team of 10. Now I'm overseeing half the company. Tessa had implemented her first culture change. Junior staff were required to present their own ideas, rather than letting senior partners take credit. All of them? Even the transparent salary structure? I left. We barely spoke for years, he shrugged. Then he died and suddenly I inherited everything. I assumed you had been preparing to take over. Easier to like. Now I'm running $1 billion company because my last name is on the building. I need $5K by Friday or I'm in serious trouble. Today, a young designer named Zoe had pitched a brilliant concept for the Westbrook project, earning praise from colleagues who'd barely acknowledged her existence before. I think Harold is terrified of losing his corner office and expense account. Good work today, Tessa told the team as they wrapped up. Especially you, Zoe. That was exactly the fresh perspective we needed. Why you declined 3 lunch invitations from the marketing team last week? The young woman beamed. People are different when they think no one important is watching. Here's the implementation schedule. You'll have full authority to make it happen. As the room emptied, Tessa gathered her materials, feeling a small sense of accomplishment. Whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone. Her satisfaction carried her to the top floor, where Rowan's office occupied the northeast corner of the building. His assistant waved her in immediately. Some burdens aren't meant to be shared, Rowan. And some managers who project perfect control look at their phones with such sadness when they think no one can see. He knew nothing about her struggles, her relationship with her brother, the promises she'd made to her mother before she died. Rowan stood at the window, his back to the door. You wanted to see me? She asked. By late afternoon, she was reviewing budgets in the conference room when the door opened. He turned, and she was struck again by how ordinary he looked for a billionaire. Yes, thank you for coming. He gestured to the seating area. Tessa felt her defenses rise. What concerns specifically? They think your changes are too radical, flattening the hierarchy, implementing anonymous feedback systems, creating mentorship programs that pair executives with junior staff. And what do you think? Tessa asked carefully. My father used to say I lacked social graces. He was right. A small smile crossed Rowan's face. Rowan sipped his coffee. Because I need your help with something. Tessa relaxed slightly. I agree. Tessa blinked in surprise. Rowan was a quick study, absorbing everything Tessa taught him about client relations. To her surprise, she enjoyed their sessions. Away from prying eyes, he was funny and self-deprecating, nothing like the stern, reserved figure he presented to the board. Everyone assumes I know what I'm doing. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I don't want to mess this up, it's a huge project. Rowan told her about his years in Europe, working as a curator's assistant at small museums. Especially that one. My father believed secrecy gave him negotiating power. I believe transparency builds trust. He handed her a folder. Tessa took the folder, stunned by the level of responsibility he was entrusting to her. Thank you, I won't let you down. I wanted to be a teacher like my mom, But when she got sick, we needed money more than dreams. I know you won't. He leaned back in his chair. Raised 2 kids on a teacher's salary, never complained. When she got sick, everything changed. I was in college. Marcus was still in high school. Honestly, the sense of history, and nobody cared that my last name was Dade. He twirled noodles around his chopsticks. What about you? Did you always want to work in architecture? Said I was turning my back on our community, trying to be something I wasn't. She sighed. He dropped out anyway, started hanging with a rough crowd. Now he only calls when he needs money. I've bailed him out so many times, but it never changes anything. My brother, we used to be close. Imposter syndrome, he suggested. Tessa raised an eyebrow. You're familiar with the concept? Intimately. His expression grew more serious. I was an art history major who spent the last 5 years working at museums in Europe. We don't. He carefully closed his takeout container. But that doesn't mean you have to let someone take advantage of you either. He called me ungrateful, said I was wasting my potential. I told him I needed to find my own path. He looked at her. We never reconciled. And then suddenly it was too late. You shouldn't give up on that dream. The admission surprised her. My father assumed that too. Rowan's voice held a hint of old pain. We disagreed. Tessa didn't know how to respond. His vulnerability made her uncomfortable, not because it was unwelcome, but because it made him harder to categorize. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Checking it quickly, she saw another text from Marcus. Last chance, Tessa. Rowan noticed her expression change. Everything okay? As they walked to the elevator together, he said, You'll make a good teacher someday if you still want to be one. Fine, she said automatically, putting the phone away. Just a personal matter. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met. He studied her for a moment. You know, in my 3 weeks working incognito, I noticed something interesting. Meaning? As they stood on the sidewalk, Rowan suddenly said, I've been thinking about your company culture. Some executives who smile at each other in meetings make cruel remarks behind closed doors. Some assistants who seem meek have the sharpest insights. When they reached the lobby, Rowan walked her to the door. Tessa felt exposed, as if he could somehow read the contents of her text messages. We all have personal lives, Mr. Dade. Rowan, he corrected gently. And yes, we do. Sometimes those lives affect us at work, no matter how hard we try to separate them. I keep my personal issues private, Tessa said firmly. Is that why you never leave before 9 p.m.? Why you're the first one here every morning? Her eyes narrowed. Have you been monitoring me? No, he said simply. I've been seeing you. The words hung in the air between them, carrying a weight Tessa wasn't prepared for. She stood abruptly. I should get back to work. Thank you for approving the proposals. He didn't try to stop her as she walked to the door, but his voice followed her. Tessa. She paused with her hand on the doorknob, not turning around. Back in her office, Tessa tried to focus on work, but her mind kept replaying their conversation. How dare he presume to understand her life? Yet a small voice inside her whispered that his concern seemed genuine, that maybe, just maybe, he really was seeing her. The thought terrified her more than his disapproval ever could. The next day, Tessa buried herself in meetings, deliberately avoiding the executive floor. Rowan walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Peace offering, he said, setting one in front of her. I overstepped yesterday. Tessa accepted the coffee cautiously. Yes, you did. I'm sorry. He sat across from her. Despite herself, Tessa smiled slightly. Apology accepted. Good. What kind of something? The Westbrook presentation is next week. I'm supposed to lead it, but I've never actually done a client pitch before. Tessa stared at him. You're the owner of the company. Exactly. For the first time, Tessa saw beyond the billionaire to the man underneath, someone thrust into a role he hadn't chosen, trying his best not to fail. Okay, she said. We'll practice after hours. I'll walk you through it. Relief crossed his face. Thank you. They spent the next 3 evenings working on the presentation. On Friday night, after their final practice session, Rowan ordered Chinese food from a hole-in-the-wall place he'd discovered during his undercover days. "Your delivery radius must be impressive," Tessa remarked as they ate at the conference table. "This place is 20 blocks away." "I may have offered the delivery guy an extremely generous tip," Rowan admitted. "The Kung Pao chicken is worth it." As they ate, their conversation drifted from work to more personal topics. "Why museums?" Tessa asked, genuinely curious. "I love the quiet." "No," Tessa admitted. "I'm sorry about your mother," Rowan said softly. Tessa nodded, the old grief rising in her throat. She was amazing. "Marcus is your brother?" Tessa hesitated, then nodded. "Used to be." She set down her chopsticks, debating how much to share. Something about the late hour and the dim lighting made it easier to talk. "After Mom died, I took a job at this firm. Any job, to pay the bills and keep Marcus in school. He resented it." "And that's who's been texting you," Rowan guessed. "Yeah, he's in some kind of trouble, again." She shook her head. "What will you do?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to help. He's still my brother. But another part is just tired." Rowan was quiet for a moment. "My father and I stopped speaking when I refused to join the company after college." The raw pain in his voice resonated with Tessa's own fears. "I'm sorry. My point is, sometimes we think we have all the time in the world to fix things." They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Tessa checked her watch. "It's almost midnight. We should call it a night." Rowan nodded, helping her clean up their impromptu dinner. Tessa looked at him in surprise. "What makes you say that?" "The way you taught me this week. Patient but firm, encouraging but honest." The elevator arrived and they stepped inside. As the doors closed, Tessa felt something shift between them, a new understanding, a tentative trust. "Thank you," she said softly. They rode down in silence, but it was a comfortable one. "My car can take you home," he offered. "I'm fine with the subway," she replied automatically. "It's midnight, Tessa." "I've been taking the subway at midnight for years." He shook his head with a small smile. "Thank you," she said, and they both laughed. "At least let me wait with you for a taxi," he compromised. Outside, the spring air was cool and fresh after the stuffy building. "Proposals." "Oh?" Tessa raised an eyebrow. "Having second thoughts?" "No. The opposite, actually. I want to go further." His expression was animated, more passionate than she'd ever seen him. "What if we established a scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in architecture, and a mentorship track that could lead to full-time employment?" He hesitated, then finished softly. "The Grace Ward Scholarship Program. After your mother." Tessa stared at him, caught off guard by his enthusiasm. "That would be amazing, actually. Will you help me design it? We could call it the—" Tessa felt her throat tighten with emotion. "How did you know her name? You mentioned it during one of our sessions. I hope that's not overstepping again." "No," she whispered. "It's perfect." A taxi pulled up to the curb. Before she could stop herself, Tessa stepped forward and hugged him briefly. "Thank you, Rowan." He seemed startled by the contact, but returned the hug gently. "You're welcome." When the clients enthusiastically approved their proposal, the entire team celebrated. As her taxi pulled away, Tessa felt lighter than she had in years. For the first time since her mother died, someone had seen her grief and honored it, not with empty words but with action. Days were filled with implementing her culture changes throughout the company. Evenings often found them working late, sharing takeout and increasingly personal conversations. Maybe Rowan Dade wasn't playing games after all. "I know where the money could come from," he'd written. "Your rich boss seems pretty friendly these days." The Westbrook presentation went flawlessly. Rowan commanded the room with quiet confidence, using all the techniques Tessa had taught him. Did they believe her promotion had been earned on her back rather than her merit? He learned about her childhood in Queens, her mother's dedication to education, her dreams of opening a community arts center someday. To Tessa Ward, without whom this wouldn't have happened. At the small gathering afterward, Rowan raised his glass. All eyes turned to her, and for once, Tessa didn't mind the attention. She smiled and raised her glass in return. To new beginnings. Over the next few weeks, Tessa and Rowan fell into a comfortable routine. She learned that his mother had left when he was a child, that he'd attended boarding schools, where his wealth made him both envied and isolated. "You could do it, you know," Rowan told her one evening as they reviewed architectural plans. "Start a foundation, create something lasting." There was Marcus, unshaven and agitated, arguing loudly with security. "Maybe someday," Tessa replied, though the idea took root in her mind. What she didn't tell him was that her brother's texts had become more desperate, then threatening. "Finally, your watchdogs wouldn't let me up. It was supposed to be a sure thing." She'd blocked his number after that, but the implication haunted her. Did people think she and Rowan were involved? The thought made her pull back slightly in their interactions, maintaining more professional distance. If Rowan noticed, he didn't comment. "I'm in deep with some guys, dangerous guys. If I don't pay them by tomorrow, gambling, drugs." I've seen the pictures in the business section. Dade Air and Rising Star revolutionized company culture. You two looked pretty cozy until the day Marcus showed up at the office. But don't be surprised when those business papers start getting anonymous tips about how the great Tessa Ward really got her promotion. Tessa was in a meeting when Jamal interrupted with an urgent message, including the ones where you mentioned the new owner might be coming back. Awful convenient timing for your career, wasn't it? "There's someone in reception demanding to see you. Says he's your brother." Her heart sank. "Tell him I'm busy." 10. "I don't have that kind of money, or everyone finds out you've been sleeping your way to the top." "I tried. He's causing a scene." Tessa excused herself from the meeting and hurried to the lobby. "Marcus," she said sharply, "what are you doing here?" He turned, his expression a mixture of anger and desperation. "Because you don't have an appointment," she replied evenly. "Let's talk outside." Once on the sidewalk, Marcus didn't waste time. "I need help, Tess." "Stop." Tessa held up a hand. "I've heard this before. What is it this time?" "Think about what I said, sis." "It's not like that," he insisted. "I got involved in this investment thing." She straightened her jacket. "I need to get back to work." "It's always a sure thing, Marcus," she sighed. "How much?" 10,000. And somewhere in the middle was Rowan, the man she was beginning to care for more than she wanted to admit. When she finally left, the office was dark and empty. Tessa stared at him. "Don't lie to me, Tess. You got that big promotion, new office, fancy title." How could she tell Rowan that her own family was trying to blackmail her? That her hard-earned reputation was about to be destroyed by lies? "That doesn't mean I have $10,000 just sitting around." Marcus's expression turned ugly. "What about your boyfriend then? The rich guy you work for? I won't push you to tell me what it is, but whatever it is, we can figure it out together." Outside, the night air was heavy with approaching rain. "I've kept all your texts from the last 6 months. I never said—" "Doesn't matter what you actually said, it's how it looks." Marcus stepped closer. 10,000, Tess, by tomorrow." Understanding dawned on his face. "And if you don't get the money?" Before she could respond, a quiet voice spoke from behind her. "Is everything all right, Tessa?" She turned to find Rowan standing there, his expression concerned. How much had he heard? "He's threatening to spread rumors. About us. Because you're the first person since my father died who sees me as a person, not a bank account or a last name. Because you challenge me and don't back down. Because when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I can actually do this. Run this company. Honor my father's legacy. Be more than just an accident of birth. We've been estranged for years, and in his mind, I abandoned him for..." Despite all her walls, all her defenses, she had fallen for him. His quiet strength, his unexpected kindness, his willingness to be vulnerable with her. I'm offering to stand beside you while you face this, on your terms. She gestured at the building behind them. All this. Tessa's heart pounded in her chest as Rowan slowly reached out, his hand gently touching her cheek. It was gentle at first, then deeper as she responded, her hands finding their way to his shoulders. About how I got my promotion. Everything's fine, she said quickly. This is my brother, Marcus. He was just leaving. Why do you care what happens to me? Marcus looked between them, a calculating gleam in his eye. Mr. Dade, right? I've heard so much about you. Rowan extended his hand politely. Marcus, nice to meet you. Nice. Likewise. Marcus shook his hand, then glanced at Tessa. I'll let you get back to work. I've been calling your cell for an hour. After he walked away, Tessa stood frozen, humiliation and anger washing over her in waves. Last night had felt like something from a movie, the confession, the rain, the perfect kiss. But in the harsh light of day, reality came crashing back. Marcus's threat still hung over her head, and now her relationship with Rowan complicated things even further. Had someone seen her and Rowan kissing outside the building? And Mr. Dade? She wanted to believe they could overcome Marcus's threats, that her relationship with Rowan could withstand the scrutiny and gossip. Are you okay? Rowan asked gently. I'm fine. Her voice was brittle. Just family drama. Do you want to talk about it? No. The email suggested our relationship began before my identity was revealed. The email included some text messages that, taken out of context, could suggest otherwise. And nothing happened between us until last night. That you knew who I was that night in the lobby. That your promotion was he hesitated, compensation for your discretion. Rowan studied her face, clearly concerned. Tessa, please, Rowan, not now. He nodded, respecting her boundaries. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. Then she remembered, months ago when rumors first circulated about the absent owner possibly returning, she'd texted Marcus about potential changes at work. Nothing specific, just general comments about her boss returning and how it might affect her job. But as Tessa walked back into the building, she wondered if she would ever be ready to explain the mess her brother had created. For the first time in years, Tessa felt truly alone, trapped between her loyalty to her brother and her dedication to her career. That night she worked later than usual, avoiding any chance of another personal conversation with Rowan. Or so she thought. As she waited for the elevator, Rowan emerged from his office. "You're still here," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "Just finishing up some things." The elevator arrived, and they both stepped inside. As the doors closed, Rowan turned to her. "I know something's wrong, Tessa." The kindness in his voice nearly broke her. "You can't fix this, Rowan. Try me." The elevator reached the lobby, and they walked out together. "My brother needs money," she finally said. "A lot of money. He thinks I should ask you for it." Rowan frowned. "Why would he think that?" "Because he thinks we're—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Ah." Tessa looked away. Anger flashed in Rowan's eyes. "That's blackmail." He's desperate and hurt. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Rowan considered her words. "Let me help." "I can't ask you for money. I'm not offering money." His voice was firm. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. Neither of them moved to seek shelter. "Why?" Tessa asked, the question that had been haunting her for weeks finally spilling out. Rowan stepped closer, raindrops falling between them. The raw honesty in his voice left her speechless. "And," he continued more softly, "because I think you feel it too. This connection between us." The rain was soaking them both now, but neither moved. "Tell me I'm wrong," he whispered. She couldn't, because he wasn't wrong. "You're not wrong," she admitted, her voice barely audible above the rain. His smile was like sunrise after the longest night. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and kissed her. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. "We should get inside," Tessa said, suddenly aware they were standing on a public sidewalk in the rain. Rowan nodded, but before they moved, he said, Whatever your brother is threatening, we'll handle it together, I promise. As they walked back into the building, Tessa felt a mixture of hope and fear. But experience had taught her that happiness came with a price, and she couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere the bill was coming due. The morning after their rain-soaked kiss, Tessa arrived at work with mixed emotions. As she stepped off the elevator, she nearly collided with Jamal, who looked unusually agitated. "There you are. Sorry, I had it on silent. What's wrong?" "Harold Reynolds called an emergency board meeting. It started 15 minutes ago." Tessa's stomach dropped. "Was I supposed to be there?" "No, but—" Jamal lowered his voice. "They're talking about you." Her worst fears confirmed, Tessa hurried to her office. Had Marcus already made good on his threats? She had barely sat down when her office door opened. Rowan walked in, his expression unreadable. "Good morning," he said formally, closing the door behind him. "What's happening?" she asked, getting straight to the point. "Jamal mentioned a board meeting." "Yes." Rowan sat across from her. "Harold received an anonymous email this morning with some concerning allegations." Tessa felt sick. "About us?" Rowan nodded. "That's absurd." Tessa stood, anger replacing her initial shock. "I had no idea who you were." "I know that," Rowan said calmly. "But Harold and the board don't. Marcus. It had to be. But how had he gotten her texts to look incriminating? Tessa had never mentioned Rowan in any specific way. "What did you tell the board?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "The truth, that there was nothing inappropriate about your promotion, that any personal relationship developed recently and has been kept entirely separate from business matters." "And did they believe you?" Rowan's slight hesitation told her everything. "Harold suggested it might be better if you stepped back from your position until things are clarified." "Stepped back," Tessa repeated incredulously. "You mean demoted?" "Temporarily reassigned," Rowan corrected, though his tone suggested he didn't agree with the phrasing. "To avoid any appearance of impropriety." Tessa felt the walls closing in. Everything she'd worked for, all her sacrifices and late nights and missed holidays, wiped away by innuendo and lies. "And what did you say to that suggestion?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. "I made it clear that you earned your position through merit and results, that questioning your abilities was not only inappropriate but potentially actionable." "I told them absolutely not." Rowan's expression hardened. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. "They won't let this go easily. Reynolds has never liked me. And he will, because I'm not backing down. Neither should you. Reynolds doesn't need to like you, he needs to respect you." Rowan stood and moved closer to her desk. Tessa studied his face, looking for any sign of doubt or regret. She found none. His voice was firm. "I'm not going to let them punish you for something you didn't do. We don't hide, and we don't apologize." He smiled slightly. "And maybe we figure out who sent that email." For so long she had fought her battles alone, convinced that relying on others was a weakness. "There's someone from the Chronicle online, one asking for a comment about your relationship with Mr. Dade." Yet here was Rowan, standing beside her, not because she needed saving, but because he believed in her. "This could damage your standing with the board," she warned. "They already think you're too inexperienced. If we try to hide, it only makes us look guilty. Let them think what they want." The fierce loyalty in his eyes touched something deep inside her. "At the company-wide meeting tomorrow, we announce our relationship officially. Make it clear it began recently, that all professional decisions were made before anything personal developed." "What's our next move?" she asked. "We continue exactly as planned with the company restructuring." Tessa knew exactly who had sent it. It was Marcus. "I suspected as much. The question is, what do we do about it?" Having someone to lean on was new and frightening, but also strangely freeing. Rowan nodded. Tessa spotted Marcus sitting on a bench near the fountain, his posture tense and defensive. "Just remember, you're not alone in this anymore." Before Tessa could answer, her office phone rang. Jamal's voice came through the speaker. "Ms. Ward?" Tessa and Rowan exchanged alarmed looks. "Tell them no comment," Tessa replied. After hanging up, she sank into her chair. "This is getting out of hand." More quietly, he added, You never helped me. I paid your rent for 2 years after Mom died. I bought your car. I gave you money for that business idea that never materialized. I did what I had to do to keep us afloat. You were ashamed of where we came from. It's always been about your success, your future. We need to get ahead of it, Rowan said decisively. She asked, sitting beside him but keeping her distance. Crumbs from your table while you climb the corporate ladder. Blackmail? Really? The anger, the resentment, the hurt. It had been there all along, festering beneath the surface. The email you sent to the board, the texts, you took them completely out of context. What are you suggesting? I was proud of Mom, of what she accomplished as a single parent. I just wanted more. Different. Not better, just different. We address it head on. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. This is Dr. Elaine Chen. She runs a career counseling and financial planning program. I've paid for 6 months of sessions. The thought of publicly discussing her private life made Tessa uncomfortable, but she saw the logic. And what about Marcus? Marcus, I had no idea who he was that night in the lobby. Not someone who sees me as an ATM or a target for blackmail. My promotion was based on my work, nothing else. But know this, if you continue trying to hurt me, hurt my career, or hurt my relationship, I'll have no choice but to cut contact completely. Instead, after a long silence, he picked up the card. She didn't look back to see if Marcus was watching her go. This time, the choice was his to make. I won't enable this behavior anymore. Rowan's expression softened. That's your call. He's your brother. Tessa closed her eyes briefly, years of complicated emotions washing over her. I need to talk to him. One more time. Do you want me to come with you? She shook her head. This is between us. Family business. She stood to leave. Call me when you've had your first session. Acknowledge that we've recently begun seeing each other personally, that all professional decisions predated any personal relationship, and that we're committed to maintaining appropriate boundaries at work. Jamal says 3 more outlets have called for comments, but there's something else we need to discuss. Not before. I can't keep bailing you out only for you to resent me more each time. Rowan respected her decision. Whatever you need. I've been working on the details. Full tuition for 10 students each year, internship opportunities, mentoring. He pulled a folder from his briefcase. I've drawn up a proposal. You'd step down from operations to head the foundation full-time, same salary, more autonomy, and the chance to make your mother's legacy live on. Was this his way of removing her from the controversy? Of separating their professional lives to protect their personal relationship? But I want it to be more than just my project. I gave him an ultimatum. Get help or stay out of my life. She managed a small smile. But it was necessary. The rumors. It was thorough, thoughtful and generous, exactly what she would expect from him. The foundation would focus on arts education in underserved communities, providing pathways to careers in architecture, design and related fields. Or would she wonder why Tessa had abandoned her own passion for teaching? She asked directly. For both of us, you come alive in a way I never see when you're reviewing budgets or restructuring departments. Rumors had been circulating all day about the purpose of the all-hands meeting, and tension was high. As he left her office, Tessa felt a strange mix of vulnerability and strength, and in the press, and I believe in addressing such matters directly. He looked calm and confident, every inch the leader despite his reluctant path to the position. She picked up her phone and sent a text to the number she'd blocked. We need to talk. Today. In person. This relationship developed after her promotion to head of internal operations, which was based solely on her professional qualifications and achievements, he asked as soon as she entered. That's why I want to be completely transparent about 2 things. First, we are committed to maintaining appropriate professional boundaries in the workplace. Second, we will recuse ourselves from any decisions that might create an actual or perceived conflict. He stood to leave. The offer has no expiration date, and Tessa, whatever you decide, I support you completely. With all due respect, Mr. Dade, how can the staff be assured that Ms. Ward's rapid rise through the company hasn't been influenced by personal factors? The response came almost immediately. Central Park, Bethesda Fountain, noon. She had buried her dreams so deeply for so long that she barely acknowledged them anymore. The spring day was deceptively beautiful, sunshine warming the park as tourists and locals alike enjoyed the weather. "You came alone," he noted as she approached. "Smart. What are you doing, Marcus?" He wouldn't meet her eyes. "I told you I needed the money. So you decided to destroy my career, my reputation, everything I've worked for? You wouldn't help me." His voice rose, drawing glances from passers-by. The unfairness of his accusation stung. "That's not true." "Handouts," he scoffed. "What did you want from me, Marcus? I was 22 when Mom died, barely out of college." "You did what you wanted to do," he corrected bitterly. "You always wanted that fancy life, those fancy people." Tessa stared at her brother, truly seeing him for the first time in years. "I was never ashamed of where we came from," she said quietly. "And now you've got it all, big office, big salary, billionaire boyfriend. Is that what this is about? Rowan?" Tessa shook her head. "But you're together now," he pressed. "Convenient timing." "Yes, we're together now. It happened recently. After everything else." She turned to face him fully. Marcus had the grace to look slightly ashamed. "I was desperate." "You're always desperate, Marcus. There's always some crisis, some urgent need. When does it end?" He didn't answer, and in his silence Tessa found her own resolve strengthening. "I love you," she said. "You're my brother, but I can't keep doing this." "So what, you're cutting me off? Choosing him over family?" "This isn't about Rowan. It's about us, about patterns that aren't healthy for either of us." Marcus stared at the card without taking it. "More charity?" "No, investment. In you. In us." She placed the card on the bench between them. "I want my brother back, Marcus. And if I don't want your counselor, that's your choice." The ultimatum hung in the air between them. For a moment, Tessa thought he might explode in anger or storm off. "I don't know if I can change," he admitted, his voice smaller than she'd heard it in years. "None of us know until we try." As she walked away, Tessa felt both heavy and light, mourning what their relationship had become, but hopeful about what it might still be. Back at the office, Tessa found Rowan waiting in her office. "How did it go?" "As well as could be expected," she replied, settling behind her desk. "That couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't." Rowan nodded in understanding. "I've been thinking about tomorrow's announcement. And I think we should keep it simple." "That sounds reasonable," Tessa agreed. "What about the press?" "My PR team is preparing a brief statement along the same lines. No interviews, no details." He leaned forward. The seriousness in his tone made her nervous. "What is it?" "The Grace Ward Scholarship Program." His eyes lit up as he spoke. "What do you mean?" "I want you to run it, as the Foundation's director." Tessa took the folder, stunned by the offer. "You want me to leave my position?" "Not leave. Evolve. Take on something more meaningful." He watched her carefully. "Unless you'd rather stay in operations." The question hung in the air as Tessa considered what he was really asking. "Is this because of the board?" "No," Rowan answered firmly. "This is because when you talk about teaching, about creating opportunities for kids like you and your brother, your whole face changes." His observation was so accurate it took her breath away. "I need some time to think about it," she said finally. "Of course." After he left, Tessa opened the folder and began reading his proposal. As she read, a memory surfaced. Her mother at the kitchen table grading papers late into the night, telling Tessa, "Education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you." What would Grace Ward think of her daughter now? Would she be proud of the corporate success, the corner office, the designer suits? Tessa closed the folder, her decision not yet made, but her heart opening to possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider in years. The next morning, the company's largest conference room was packed with employees from every department. Tessa stood at the back watching as Rowan took his place at the front of the room. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know there have been rumors circulating, both within the company." The room fell silent, all eyes on him. Ms. Ward and I have recently begun a personal relationship, he stated simply. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tessa kept her expression neutral, though she felt dozens of eyes turned toward her. I understand that relationships between executives can create concerns about favoritism or conflicts of interest, Rowan continued. He paused, scanning the room. Are there any questions? A hand went up near the front. It was Harold Reynolds, his expression skeptical. Before Rowan could answer, Tessa stepped forward. This was her reputation at stake, and she would defend it herself. Mr. Reynolds, she said, her voice clear and steady, my performance reviews and achievement metrics are available in HR for anyone who wishes to review them. My qualifications were earned through years of hard work, not personal connections. Reynolds didn't back down. And what about the recent anonymous allegations? You mean the false claims sent by someone with a personal vendetta? Tessa replied coolly. I stand by my record and my integrity. Anyone who knows me knows I've never taken shortcuts or relied on favoritism. From across the room, Zoe, the young designer whose project Tessa had championed, stood up. Ms. Ward gave me the chance to present my own designs when senior partners had been taking credit for junior staff work for years. She had been so focused on proving herself, on fighting for her place, that she hadn't realized how many allies she'd made along the way. She judges people on their merits, not their connections. His voice was pleasant but carried an unmistakable note of finality. Now there's one more announcement I'd like to make. Another employee stood. She stayed until midnight helping my team fix budget issues when we were about to miss a deadline. She works harder than anyone I know. One by one, colleagues spoke up, sharing stories of Tessa's fairness, dedication, and integrity. As Tessa listened, emotion welled in her throat. And I've asked Miss Ward to consider taking on the role of foundation director. But standing there, seeing the excitement and support on her colleagues' faces, something clicked into place. Rowan watched with a small smile, saying nothing. This was her moment, her defense, and he understood she needed to stand on her own. When the testimonials finally ended, Reynolds looked distinctly uncomfortable. Rowan stepped forward again. Education changed my life, as it changes so many lives. Harold Reynolds was notably absent, having slipped out early. This foundation will be a bridge for talented students who might otherwise never have the opportunity to pursue their dreams. As she walked forward, whispers followed her, but they felt supportive rather than suspicious. My father believed in creating spaces that improved lives. Today I'm proud to announce the establishment of the Grace Ward Scholarship Foundation, named after Tessa's late mother, who was a dedicated educator. He took her hand briefly, a small gesture of affection now that they were alone. You'll be amazing at it. I think that answers your question, Harold. He gestured for Tessa to join him at the front of the room, but not somewhere fancy. Let's go to that little Thai place you discovered during your janitor days, Rowan asked as they reached her office. To celebrate? Dade architectural design has always been about more than just buildings, Rowan said. I'd like to keep my operational role during the transition. The culture changes we've started are too important to abandon midway. Somehow, against all odds and her own defenses, Rowan had slipped past her walls and into her heart. Surprised murmurs filled the room. Tessa hadn't expected him to announce this now. The foundation will provide full scholarships to students from underserved communities who wish to pursue careers in architecture, design, and related fields, Rowan continued. The Grace Ward Scholarship Foundation was officially launched with a small ceremony attended by the company's employees and the first class of scholarship recipients, 10 bright, eager students from backgrounds similar to Tessa's own. He showed her the small hidden corners of the city he'd discovered during his undercover weeks. Their relationship remained tentative, fragile, but healing had begun. He'd found a job as an assistant at a community arts program. Modest work, but honest and connected to their roots in a way that seemed to bring him peace. She introduced him to her favorite bookstore in Queens, the community center where her mother had volunteered, the basketball court where she and Marcus had played as children. The path ahead wasn't without challenges. There would still be gossip, doubters, and the ongoing project of rebuilding her relationship with Marcus. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't facing these challenges alone. We have dinner reservations at 8. The event had always been a lavish affair, showcasing the firm's accomplishments to clients and industry leaders. This year, it would also serve as the official public introduction of Rowan as CEO and highlight the new scholarship foundation. Now she had someone, to leave the office for. "This is for you, Mom," she whispered as she applauded. All eyes turned to Tessa expectantly. She hadn't given Rowan her answer yet, hadn't even fully decided herself. Since the company meeting, Reynolds had maintained a chilly distance, clearly unhappy with her continued rise in the company. "I'm honored to accept," she said, the words coming naturally. Inside were police reports. Marcus had been arrested twice in the past year for minor offenses. Nothing serious, but not information she had shared with anyone at the company. Reynolds' smile didn't reach his eyes. "We wouldn't want any unsavory connections to emerge at an inopportune time." Applause filled the room, genuine and enthusiastic. As it died down, Rowan wrapped up the meeting, thanking everyone for their time and support. As people filed out, many stopped to congratulate Tessa or express their support. When the room finally emptied, Rowan turned to her with a questioning look. "You accepted the position. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this evening. You know, when Thomas Dade was alive, this company had standards, dignity. Now his son is turning it into his personal playground, and you're helping him do it." "I did," she confirmed. "It felt right." "I'm glad. Rowan has brought more innovation and positive change to this company in 6 months than the board managed in the last 5 years. You won't always have his protection, Ms. Ward, remember that. If that threatens you, perhaps the problem isn't with his leadership." She debated calling Rowan to tell him about Reynolds' veiled threats, but decided against it. "When we met, I was pretending to be someone else because I was afraid to take the key to my father's company. You showed me how to unlock my own potential." "There's something else," he said, his voice suddenly nervous. "Something I want to ask you." Tonight was supposed to be special, their 3-month anniversary. She wouldn't let Harold Reynolds ruin it. Tessa closed the folder and handed it back to him. "My brother's past has nothing to do with my qualifications or the Foundation's mission. It's about Marcus. He missed our session today, and he left a concerning voicemail. He mentioned the company gala tomorrow night and said something about making things right and showing everyone the truth. I tried calling him back, but he's not answering. I thought you should know." "There's just one thing," Tessa said. Reynolds leaned forward. "First, the relationship with Rowan. Now this, people are starting to talk." Rowan nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need." She glanced at it, ready to ignore the call, but the name on the screen made her pause. It was Dr. Chen, Marcus's counselor. "Whatever he's planning, we'll handle it." Just when things were finally falling into place, her career, her relationship with Rowan, even her tentative reconnection with Marcus, it felt like everything might come crashing down. As they walked out together, Tessa felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. Had he said something to Marcus? Provoked him in some way? Dinner tonight? They drove to his apartment, but the lights were off and no one answered the door. "I'd like that," Tessa replied with a smile. "Whatever Marcus is planning, hiding won't help. We face it together, head on." "You're right, but I'm scared, Rowan. Not just for myself, but for Marcus, for us. Tomorrow we prepare for whatever comes." She had spent so many years building walls to protect herself, never trusting anyone enough to let them see her vulnerabilities. Now she was learning, maybe I should just not attend. He laughed. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. As he walked away, Tessa caught Jamal watching them with an amused expression. "What?" she asked, unable to suppress a smile. "Nothing," he replied innocently. "Just never thought I'd see the day when Tessa Ward looked at a man like that." "Like what?" "Like maybe there's more to life than quarterly reports and project deadlines." Tessa rolled her eyes, but she couldn't deny the truth in his words, and for once she wasn't afraid of what that might mean. 3 months passed quickly. Summer arrived in the city, bringing humid days and busy schedules. Watching them receive their scholarships, Tessa felt her mother's presence strongly. Her relationship with Rowan deepened daily. They kept things professional at work, but evenings and weekends were theirs alone. Marcus himself had surprised her by attending all 6 counseling sessions. On a warm Friday in July, Tessa worked late finalizing details for the annual company gala. Tessa's phone rang as she reviewed the seating chart. It was Rowan. "Still at the office?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Just finishing up the gala preparations. Everything needs to be perfect." "It will be, because you're in charge." His voice softened. "But don't stay too late. I'll be done by 7, I promise." After they hung up, Tessa smiled to herself. 6 months ago, she would have worked until midnight without a second thought. As she gathered her things to head home, her office door opened. Harold Reynolds walked in without knocking. "Ms. Ward," he said coldly, "I need a word." Tessa straightened, instantly on guard. "What can I help you with, Harold?" "I've received some concerning information." He placed a folder on her desk. "About your brother." Tessa's heart sank as she opened the folder. "Why are you bringing this to me?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "The board is concerned about the company's image. The Grace Ward Foundation is very public, very visible." The threat was barely veiled. "Are you suggesting my brother's past should disqualify me from running the foundation?" "I'm suggesting that perhaps your personal life is becoming a liability to this company." "People always talk, Harold. The board may see things differently." "Then I suggest they speak to me directly." Tessa stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Reynolds took the folder but made no move to leave. The accusation stung, but Tessa refused to show it. Reynolds' face darkened. After he left, Tessa sank back into her chair, her good mood evaporated. Later that evening, as they sat at their favorite small Italian restaurant, Rowan presented her with a small, elegant box. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "Open it and see." Inside was a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a key. "It's beautiful," she said, lifting it from the box. "It's symbolic," Rowan explained. Tessa was touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "Will you help me put it on?" As he fastened the necklace around her throat, his fingers brushed her skin gently. Before he could continue, Tessa's phone rang. "I'm sorry. I should take this," she said apologetically. "It might be about my brother." Rowan nodded in understanding as she answered the call. "Ms. Ward, I'm sorry to disturb you after hours," Dr. Chen said, her voice tense. Tessa's blood ran cold. "Did he say anything specific?" "No, but he sounded agitated." After thanking Dr. Chen and promising to let her know when she reached Marcus, Tessa hung up and met Rowan's concerned gaze. "What's wrong?" he asked. "It's Marcus. Dr. Chen thinks he might be planning something at the gala tomorrow." She quickly explained the situation. "I need to find him." "We'll find him together," Rowan said firmly, already signaling for the check. As they left the restaurant, Tessa felt a familiar knot of dread forming in her stomach. She thought of Reynolds' warning earlier that day and wondered if somehow he was involved. Tessa's calls to her brother went straight to voicemail. "We should call the police," Rowan suggested as they returned to the car. "And tell them what? That my brother left a vague message about attending a gala." Tessa shook her head. "They won't do anything. Then we increase security at the event, screen everyone at the door. Marcus knows what I look like. He could say he's my guest." Tessa rubbed her temples, trying to think. "That won't solve anything," Rowan said gently. His words echoed their approach to every challenge so far, and despite her worry, Tessa found comfort in them. He took her hand, his grip warm and steady. "One day at a time, tonight we keep trying to reach him." As they drove through the darkened city streets, Tessa touched the key pendant at her throat. That true strength sometimes meant letting someone else help carry the burden. Whatever Marcus was planning for the gala, she wouldn't face it alone. That thought gave her courage as they continued their search into the night, the city lights blurring as they drove from place to place, looking for her troubled brother. "Tomorrow, whatever happens, we'll face it together." As the elevator carried them upward, she made a silent promise to herself. No matter what Marcus did at the gala, she wouldn't let fear rule her choices anymore. By midnight, exhausted and no closer to finding Marcus, they finally returned to Rowan's apartment. As they stepped into the elevator, Rowan pulled Tessa into a gentle embrace. "Try to get some rest," he murmured against her hair. Tessa nodded against his chest, drawing strength from his calm certainty. Tomorrow night she would stand her ground, for herself, for Rowan, and even for Marcus, who in his pain had lost sight of the brother and sister they once were. She had spent too many years running from connection, from vulnerability. The elevator doors opened, and together they stepped forward into the uncertainty that awaited them. Rowan asked as he handed her a cup of coffee. The morning of the gala dawned bright and clear, but Tessa barely noticed the perfect summer weather. She had slept fitfully, waking repeatedly to check her phone for messages from Marcus. None came. Show everyone it's business as usual. Still nothing. "Tessa, whatever happens tonight, remember that I—" "All right, but call me if anything happens, anything at all." She shook her head. "Everyone will need ID, and I've given them Marcus's photo. He's sober now and we're releasing him, but he asked us to call you. I've left him 5 voicemails, sent a dozen texts. He's always been stubborn when he feels cornered." "I've increased security for tonight," Rowan said, sitting beside her at the kitchen island. "That might just make him more determined," Tessa sighed. "Like someone else I know," Rowan said with a small smile, touching her hand gently. Tessa tried to keep the accusation out of her voice. "What were you planning, Marcus? Offered me money for dirt on you and Dade. I made some bad choices." Despite her worry, Tessa smiled back. In just a few months, he had come to know her so well. "I need to get to the venue early," she said, checking the time. "Make sure everything's set up correctly." "I'll come with you." "No," Tessa said firmly. "You have the board meeting this morning. Besides, I need to do this." Rowan studied her face, then nodded. How she used to say you'd do great things someday. And I realized she'd be ashamed of what I was about to do. "She'd be proud of you too, Marcus." He didn't sound convinced. "Anyway, I'm sorry, Tess, for everything. The blackmail, the texts, all of it. For stopping. He was arrested for public intoxication last night. For choosing better. Offered him money to cause a scene tonight, embarrass us publicly." As she gathered her things to leave, Rowan caught her hand. She wiped away a stray tear. "But Reynolds might have another plan. Do you need me to come get you?" Her phone rang, interrupting him. "Unknown number. And then I saw your picture in the business section. You were at that scholarship thing giving those kids their certificates. You looked like Mom. Officer Rivera's gonna give me a ride home." He paused. "But Tess, watch out for Reynolds. And if it doesn't, half the company is here to back you up. We've got your back, boss." Despite her conversation with Marcus, she remained tense, scanning each new arrival for signs of trouble. Besides, you still terrify the interns, Foundation Director or not. She had built real relationships here, earned genuine respect. Whatever happened tonight couldn't take that away. He really has it in for you and Dade. His voice dropped lower. "I was going to do it, Tess. I was angry and broke and stupid." "Hello," she answered quickly. He moved through the crowd with easy grace, stopping to chat with employees and clients alike. Whatever Reynolds had planned, they would face it together. "Ms. Ward, this is Officer Rivera with NYPD. We have a Marcus Ward in custody." When Rowan introduced her as the director of the Grace Ward Foundation, the applause was genuine and enthusiastic. The words flowed easily, from her heart rather than a prepared script. Tessa's heart sank. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He's fine, ma'am. Got picked up for public intoxication last night. I'm done letting him threaten you, threaten us." Tessa followed Reynolds into the hotel corridor, keeping a discreet distance. Through the glass panel, she could see Reynolds at a computer, typing rapidly. He inserted a thumb drive, downloaded something, then stood and headed back toward the door. He turned toward the business center, looking over his shoulder twice before entering. Relief washed over her. At least he was safe. "Can I speak with him?" The business center seems an odd choice for the same. There was a shuffle, then Marcus's voice came on the line. "Tess, shouldn't you be inside enjoying your moment of glory? Through this foundation, we hope to give that permanent gift to hundreds of deserving students in the years to come. But what could he possibly have found that would damage them? Thank you all for your support. Whatever he's planning, we'll handle it. What was Reynolds up to? Together." Just checking some figures before Monday's meeting. Always working, you know. I just caught Reynolds accessing our personnel files. The computer Reynolds had been using was still logged in. She quickly checked the browser history and felt her heart drop. Relationships that have influenced recent decisions. Tessa would have to wait until it was over to explain further. Rowan stepped forward, but Tessa caught his arm, stopping him. This was her fight too. As a long-standing board member of Dade Architectural Design, I feel it's my duty to address some concerning matters. He had been accessing the company's personnel files, specifically her file and Rowan's. Tessa had chosen a theme that honored the company's architectural heritage while looking toward the future. Classic columns twined with modern LED installations, traditional tablescapes alongside digital displays of the firm's latest projects. Many of you have wondered about the sudden promotion of Ms. Ward, about the rapid changes in company policy, about the millions now being directed to a foundation bearing her mother's name. Marcus, I've been trying to reach you all night. I know, I'm sorry. He sounded tired, subdued. My phone died, and then, this is hardly the appropriate venue for whatever grievance you wish to air. On the contrary, Ms. Ward, I believe transparency should extend to all company matters, not just the ones you and Mr. Dade select. She found him near the stage, where the evening's entertainment was about to begin. Dr. Chen called me. She said you left a message about the gala, about showing everyone the truth. Otherwise, please return the microphone to our MC. A long pause followed. Nothing good, he finally admitted. Reynolds reached out to me. The confirmation of her suspicions hit Tessa like a physical blow. Harold Reynolds contacted you. Reynolds reached into his pocket and produced the thumb drive. I have here documentation that Ms. Ward knew of Mr. Dade's identity weeks before their supposed first meeting in the lobby. Evidence of communications between them prior to her promotion. Yeah, said he'd pay me to make a scene at the gala, embarrass you both publicly. What changed your mind? I didn't say I changed my mind, Marcus replied, a hint of his old defensiveness returning. I got arrested before I could do anything, but something in his tone told Tessa there was more to it than that. Marcus, fine, he sighed heavily. I was at this bar getting drunk, planning what I'd say to humiliate you. Tessa's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. And I remembered how she was always so proud of you, he continued. Tears pricked at Tessa's eyes. Maybe. I know. Nah, I'm good. After saying goodbye, Tessa turned to find Rowan watching her, concern etched on his face. Marcus is okay, she explained. That's why he wasn't answering, Rowan nodded. Did he say anything about the gala? Tessa hesitated, then decided Rowan needed to know everything. He said Harold Reynolds approached him. Rowan's expression darkened. I suspected Reynolds was behind this. Did Marcus take the deal? He was going to, but he changed his mind. Tessa felt a strange mix of hurt and hope. He's not coming tonight. Let him try, Rowan said, his voice steely. The determination in his voice gave Tessa strength. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom glittered with lights and elegant decorations. She stood near the entrance, greeting guests in a midnight blue gown that made her feel both powerful and feminine. You've outdone yourself, Jamal said, appearing beside her with a champagne flute. The place looks amazing. Thanks. I just hope everything goes smoothly. It will, he assured her. His loyalty touched her. I'm not your boss anymore, remember? The foundation is separate from operations now. Jamal rolled his eyes. Once a boss, always a boss. Tessa laughed, feeling some of her tension ease. A stir at the entrance announced Rowan's arrival. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but it was his confidence that drew all eyes. When he reached Tessa, his smile was for her alone. You look beautiful, he said softly. You clean up pretty well yourself, she replied, fighting the urge to straighten his already perfect bow tie. No sign of trouble? He asked quietly. Not yet, but Reynolds just arrived. She nodded toward the bar where Harold stood with several board members, watching them with barely disguised contempt. Let him watch, Rowan said. Tonight is about celebrating this company and the foundation, not about his petty grievances. As the evening progressed, Tessa began to relax. The dinner was excellent, the speeches well received. She spoke briefly about her mother's legacy, about the importance of education and opportunity, about the 10 bright students who had already received scholarships. "My mother used to say that education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you," she concluded. As she left the stage to warm applause, Tessa caught sight of Harold Reynolds slipping out of the ballroom. Something about his expression made her uneasy. "I'll be right back," she murmured to Rowan, who was engaged in conversation with a major client. He nodded, though his eyes questioned her briefly. Curious and concerned, Tessa approached the door quietly. Tessa quickly stepped back, pretending to be checking her phone as Reynolds emerged. "Ms. Ward," he said, clearly startled to see her. "I needed some air," she replied smoothly. Reynolds' hand went to his pocket, where Tessa could see the outline of the thumb drive. "Of course," she smiled thinly. "Don't let me keep you." As he walked away, Tessa slipped into the business center. What was he planning? A public revelation of some kind? Tessa hurried back to the ballroom, searching for Rowan. "We need to talk," she whispered urgently. Before Rowan could respond, the lights dimmed and the MC announced the evening's special performance. As the music began, Rowan leaned close to her ear. His confidence calmed her somewhat, but the nagging worry remained. The performance ended to enthusiastic applause. As the lights came up, Tessa saw Reynolds approaching the stage with determined strides. "He's making his move," she murmured to Rowan. Before either of them could react, Reynolds had taken the microphone from the MC. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment," he said, his voice carrying across the now quiet room. Tessa felt the room's attention shift, hundreds of eyes moving between Reynolds, herself, and Rowan. "While tonight's celebration has been lovely," Reynolds continued, "I believe there are questions that need answering about the company's current leadership and the—" A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Mr. Reynolds," she said clearly, walking toward the stage. Reynolds smiled coldly. He turned back to the audience. The insinuation was clear, and Tessa felt heat rise in her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from anger. "If you have specific concerns, Harold, state them directly," Rowan said, his voice steady but with an edge of steel. "Gladly." Tessa's mind raced. She had never communicated with Rowan before that night. It was impossible. Reynolds continued, "I also have evidence that Ms. Ward's brother has a criminal record, a fact deliberately concealed from the board when she was appointed to head a foundation dealing with young people." The accusations hung in the air as shocked whispers spread through the crowd. Tessa felt dozens of eyes on her, judging, questioning. "May I?" Rowan held out his hand for the microphone, his expression calm. Reynolds hesitated, then passed it over with a triumphant smile, clearly believing he had won. Transparency is indeed important, which is why I'd like to address each point directly. "Thank you, Harold, for bringing these concerns forward," Rowan began, surprising everyone with his measured tone. He turned to face the crowd. "First, regarding Ms. Ward's knowledge of my identity, it would have been impossible for her to know who I was before that night in the lobby, for the simple reason that I told absolutely no one about my undercover work. Not HR, not the board, not even my personal assistant. The only person who knew was my late father's attorney, who is bound by client confidentiality. The thumb drive, Harold? You chose this public forum. Let's settle it here and now. Let's see this evidence right now." Reynolds's smirk faltered slightly. "And I believe the board will want to discuss your actions in accessing confidential personnel files and attempting to publicly defame 2 company executives. Unless, of course, there is no evidence, unless you fabricated these claims in a desperate attempt to undermine my leadership and Ms. Ward's reputation. As for communications between us," Rowan continued, "I welcome Mr. Reynolds to present this supposed evidence, because it doesn't exist. I apologize for any misunderstanding, Ms. Ward." He turned to Reynolds. Reynolds clutched the drive tighter. "I understand that change can be difficult, especially for those accustomed to the old ways of doing things. Please, enjoy the rest of your evening. The board will review it in an appropriate setting." Ms. Ward herself insisted on complete transparency in that matter. Tessa and Rowan stood side by side, accepting congratulations and words of support from colleagues and clients. But because Rowan had anticipated a problem and solved it without drama or drawing attention to it, he gave her a small nod, confirming he had handled this detail to protect both her and the foundation. "No," Rowan said firmly. When Reynolds hesitated, Rowan pressed his advantage. "After our conversation about him, I thought it was better to address it proactively. Which brings me to what I was trying to say this morning, before we were interrupted." Yes, that's what they had become, partners in work, in purpose, in life. Taking over my father's company, trying to honor his legacy while creating my own path. I couldn't have done it without you. The board agreed it was a non-issue, especially given your transparency about the situation. The room was completely silent now, all eyes on Reynolds, whose confidence was visibly crumbling. "You pushed me to be better, to be authentic, to stop hiding behind roles and titles. These were tears of recognition, of finding home in another person's understanding. You saw me, really saw me, when I was just a man sleeping on the lobby floor." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, taking in the glittering lights below. The woman who fires janitors on principle and creates foundations to honor her mother's memory. "I'm asking because I love you, Tessa. That letting someone in didn't mean losing herself, because I want to build a life with you, not just a company or a foundation, but a future, together." A small group of their closest colleagues, including Jamal and Zoe, burst out with cheers and applause. Clearly, Rowan had shared his plans with them. "As for Ms. Ward's brother," Rowan added, "his personal struggles have been disclosed to the Foundation Board, as required by our governance policies." Jamal called, raising a champagne glass. "It's about time." Tessa's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. This was news to Tessa, who looked at Rowan in surprise. "Family dinner soon?" he suggested. As midnight approached, Tessa's phone buzzed with a text message. "Congratulations, sis. He's a lucky man." As Rowan pulled her close for a kiss, she let herself sink into the moment, into the joy of being seen and loved exactly as she was. Not just the tough exterior, but everything I keep hidden. Another bridge being rebuilt, another piece of her life falling into place. "Now," Rowan said, his voice hardening, "I believe you owe Ms. Ward an apology, Harold." Reynolds looked around the room, clearly searching for allies. Finding none, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The path ahead wouldn't always be smooth. There would be challenges with the foundation, with the company, with her relationship with Marcus. But for the first time in her adult life, Tessa wasn't facing those challenges alone. "I may have been hasty in my conclusions," he muttered. "That's not an apology," Rowan pressed. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have believed this moment possible. She had been so focused on climbing, on proving herself, on holding the world at arm's length, that she had forgotten what it meant to truly connect. "You might never have promoted me. We might never have fallen in love." Reynolds' face flushed with humiliation. Tessa stepped forward and took the microphone. "Apology accepted, Mr. Reynolds." Her voice was steady, dignified. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd at her diplomatic barb. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the young girl in Queens with dreams of teaching, to the determined professional climbing the corporate ladder, to the woman she was now, still ambitious, still driven, but no longer alone. "Now," she continued with a warm smile to the assembled guests, "I believe we were in the middle of a celebration. As the music resumed and the crowd began to disperse, Reynolds slunk away toward the exit. "You knew about Marcus," Tessa said quietly when they had a moment alone. "You told the Foundation Board." "I hope you don't mind," Rowan replied. Instead of feeling managed or undermined, Tessa felt protected, not because she couldn't have handled it herself. "Thank you," she said simply. He smiled. Partners look out for each other. The word partners warmed her heart in a way she hadn't expected. As the evening wound down, Rowan guided her toward the hotel's terrace, which offered a stunning view of the city skyline. "I'm proud of you," Rowan said finally. "The way you handled Reynolds tonight, the grace under pressure. I learned from the best, Tessa replied with a smile. You were pretty impressive yourself. We make a good team. He turned to face her fully. Tessa's heart quickened as Rowan took her hands in his. Tessa Ward, these past months have been the most challenging and rewarding of my life. You would have managed, she said softly. Maybe. But I wouldn't have found myself in the process. His eyes held hers intently. Tessa felt tears prick at her eyes, but these were different from the tears she'd shed over Marcus or her mother. And you saw me, she whispered. I love what I see, Rowan said simply. All of it, the strength and the vulnerability, the ambition and the compassion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I'm not asking because of tonight's drama, or because it's expected, or because it's the next logical step, he said earnestly. Tessa looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. But Rowan had changed that, not by demanding she lower her defenses, but by showing her that strength and vulnerability could coexist. That success and compassion weren't mutually exclusive. Yes, she said, her voice clear and certain. Yes, I'll marry you. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the terrace doors opened behind them. Congratulations, boss. Tessa laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. The celebration continued late into the night, with toasts and laughter and plans for the future. It was from Marcus. Heard the news from Zoe. A simple message, but it meant the world to her. She showed the text to Rowan, who smiled. I'd like that, Tessa replied, realizing she truly meant it. Later, as they stood waiting for their car, Rowan pulled her close against the night's chill. Any regrets? He asked softly. About firing me that night? Tessa pretended to consider the question. Well, if I hadn't fired you, we might never have had that first conversation in the boardroom. So, no regrets then? She smiled up at him. Let's just say it was the best mistake I ever made. As their car arrived, Tessa took one last look at the hotel, where the gala was finally winding down. Ready to go home? Rowan asked, holding the car door for her. Tessa took his hand, the diamond on her finger catching the light. Yes, she said, I'm ready. And she was ready for home, ready for partnership, ready for a future built on trust rather than fear. As the car pulled away from the curb, she leaned against Rowan's shoulder, content in the knowledge that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing apart, but from letting someone stand beside you. And sometimes the most important people in your life are the ones you least expect, even if you find them sleeping on the lobby floor. The end.